All right, this will be interesting. Federal judge has just ruled that the MTA must run a controversial ad by a pro-Israel group called the American Freedom Defense Initiative. Now, here's what the ad says. A little hard to read here, but killing Jews is worship that draws us close to Allah. That's his jihad. What's yours? Not shockingly, many people find these ads offensive and upsetting. So the question is, when are you allowed to put this sort of stuff into the public square? Mark, let's do this in pieces. Nobody says you're not allowed to say freedom of speech. You can say what you want. But now you're talking about putting it in the public square, on the side of a bus, on a billboard, on a moving train, or whatever else. Forget that the context is this is a pro-Israel group here, and nobody that's going through the MTA is looking up a bus saying, wait a second, oh, this is intended as irony, or this is intended as satire, or anything else. People believe that some Islamic fundamentalist bought time and put it up here. So if nobody's getting the context, and this is only going to stir up hate here, and let alone potential violence, why is this allowed when you can't cry fire in a crowded theater?
If the city had demonstrated any reasonable likelihood of incitement of violence, they could have banned it because that's not protected speech. But this ad has been running for weeks and months in other major metropolises.
In two major cities, there hasn't been an incident.
San Francisco.
So do we have to wait until the first one happens?
Yeah, you do, because a prior restraint on speech is a very, very serious constitutional infringement. Now, the city could ban all political speech.
But not all speech is allowed.
The city has created, now ruled by two federal judges in Manhattan, Engelmeyer and now Kodal, that they've created a limited public forum. Once they do that, they can't engage in viewpoint discrimination unless the city establishes a real likelihood of incitement to violence. They didn't do that, and that's why the ad is permitted.
Okay, but we've seen other MTAs, for example, in LA, in the LA Transit, they didn't allow this ad. This actress, you may remember her, she won an Oscar for The Help. In the show Red Band Society, it says "scary bitch." That apparently was so offensive.
They could ban it all together, but the rules in New York are different. They have.
But it just seems to be such a moving target for me, guys. What's allowed, what isn't, and I can make an argument that that ad in New York that we just said could definitely have foreseeable problems to spur lunatics here to taking up action or even violence. So where is the line?
The line is exactly where Mark said. It's the law in New York. If you're going to provide the forum and you're going to let people pay to put ads on it, then you cannot discriminate because political ads. You can't discriminate because of a viewpoint. Judge Kodal was a very thoughtful judge.
So if somebody wanted to take an ad out, Jimmy, that says Hitler was a good guy, he just didn't have enough time, they would allow that on the side of a bus?
Probably, and well, they should. Now, these are always difficult questions of line drawing. It's a case-by-case determination. If they had made a non-speculative showing that this could lead to imminent violence, it would have been banned because that's not protected First Amendment speech. They failed to make that showing, and when she did this a couple of years ago, Geller, the one who goes around the country doing this, she spurred a change in the New York City guidelines for putting these things on the bus. They had this guideline that non-demeaning speech wasn't allowed. It was found to be too vague and too inconsistently enforced, and the city changed the speech policy.
For me, I got two problems with this. One is I have a very strong inclination that if they had the N-word and something else, that wouldn't be allowed on the side of a bus, okay?
I don't think that would be allowed because that's hate speech and it's inciting speech.
Okay, but now you decide, and I agree with you, that's hate speech, but now we're saying things here where you're ascribing the imagery, is clearly ascribing motives to people of the Islamic faith, the Muslim faith here, that weren't even said by them. This was a woman putting words in their mouths, and nobody's going to make that distinction.
They have an ad trying that, and that ad did not run in New York, but an ad that's run in other places in the country trying to soften what jihad means.
Let me give you another one. This one's in D.C., and this is also on the side of the bus in D.C. Again, another group very similar to this one who put this one out saying, and it shows a caption with Hitler shaking hands here with a Muslim, saying Jew hatred is in the Quran.
That is core protected political speech, and it's historically accurate because, as we discussed off camera, in the 1940s, Hitler actually met with the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem to try to get him and support him in wiping out Jews.
The person that's going to see that, Mark, is going to make the distinction.
The answer to that is
Hitler,
more speech.
Muslim, same
more
thing.
Speech. You don't have to provide the context. The answer to that is counter speech.
Let's assume instead you had a billboard that said, join ISIS. Is that free speech?
No, because that's advocating war against the United States, which is a crime.
One moment, Mark. Suppose it says, like us on Facebook, Al Qaeda. So
You could do that.
Now, with that first ad, suppose someone sees that first ad and they decide, I agree with that. Killing Jews does make me closer to Allah, and they go out and kill somebody.
Oh, there's
Then
plenty
what
of
do
them
they
that
do?
agree with that.
Well, they're not killing people right now. Last I've heard, in New York City, we don't have a ton of Jews being killed by Muslims.
So
So let's
made a
assume
finding that in New York City
let's
it wouldn't lead to that.
Well, the judge doesn't know that, number one.
It's the burden of the plaintiff.
The question is, well, okay.
To
Any
produce
incendiary
evidence, the
message,
defendant in
though,
this
I mean,
case.
when you're talking about being that speculative, any incendiary message, and there are so many of them plastered all over, can incite somebody to do something. The Judge Codal held a lengthy hearing. He heard testimony about the other locations that this very ad was posted. There was absolutely nothing that came of it. And
But Jimmy, you know what? That famous line, guys, when asked to define pornography.
Yeah, I know it when I see it
Right.
about obscenity,
Okay.
but this is a very related context. There are no bright line rules for this stuff.
When you look at what's happening in Rockland County right now with the kids who sat on the memorial, the 9/11 memorial, the county executive there is being accused of anti-Semitism because he took a picture and it happened to be Jewish children sitting on the memorial. And that bothered a lot of people in that community. Made them feel, according to them at least, uncomfortable, made them have a chilling effect. So it's easy for us, again, to sit back when we're not the ones that are the targets of these things to say, oh, it's fine. And generally, I am definitely pro-speech. But I don't think we need to have a race to the bottom either. I don't want to walk outside and every other bus.
That's the wisdom of the speech. You might be right about that.
We're going to keep this debate going here in the break here. But when we come back, I sat down with a Manhattan DA who had some very strong things to say about something that might be in your pocket, like an iPhone here. He says that Apple and Google are ratcheting up their technology so it's harder for authorities to pry information out of phones during criminal investigation. We come back, my conversation with Manhattan DA Cy Vance.